I don't usually get affected by this type of thing, but I just like became really overcome with emotion, and it just it is a sad subject, but I'd never kind of reacted in that way. And for the rest of the tour, I just kept feeling like really sad. I've been so excited to visit the museum because it's like so has like so many artifacts that are meant to be haunted and things like that. And I thought it'd be like a really fun thing to do. But from that moment onwards, it just felt like my interest in the paranormal was just like really sad. I just started crying.
Hi, Louise, and a big warm welcome. Appreciate you taking the time to come and join us here today on Your Ghost Stories. Please feel free to tell everyone a little bit about you and your background.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and talking to you about all things spooky. Yeah, so my name is Louise Joy, and I run the blog and website called The Morbid Tourist. I've been running The Morbid Tourist for about 2 years now, and it's basically your go-to guide about spooky things to do around the UK and beyond. So at the moment, I kind of mainly focus on spooky things to do in the UK, but I also kind of cover some things around Europe, and eventually I'm hoping to expand to kind of like the US. My absolute dream is to do a spooky road trip across the US. So yeah, it's just about highlighting the darker and weirder side of travel really, and it's a lot of fun because it's such a small specific niche, but it's a really great engaged community, and I find like so many people love hearing about, even if they don't believe in ghosts, so many people love about hearing like ghost stories and UFO sightings. So yeah, it's just about exploring all of that really.
So, what is it that first got you interested in the paranormal?
Oh, that's a tough one. I feel like I've been interested in the paranormal for my entire life. I remember kind of growing up watching Most Haunted with my mum and kind of just being like, I used to read about like ghost stories and books. And then when I watched Most Haunted, I was like, oh, you can actually visit these places and, do ghost investigations yourself. And it, completely blew my mind. And yeah, I was kind of like interested in it from that. And I think the one book that kind of like really grabbed my attention, for some reason when I was a teenager, they had a book in my school library all about the Enfield haunting, which I think is a bit weird to have in like a school library for like, teenagers and stuff. But I remember kind of just reading it and just being absolutely fascinated. And from there, I just, as soon as I got the internet at home, I was just always reading about hauntings and unsolved mysteries, or like even like the Enfield haunting. I remember being fascinated about. Some people said was a hoax. Some people kind of said, there's no way it's a hoax. Like she couldn't have done this by like lying and stuff like that. And I just found it really interesting, hearing everyone's side of the story, and I've just been like, I want to investigate this myself and learn more.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the spooky top 50?
Yeah. So basically, there's a map. So I like use loads of different like resources to kind of like research the spooky things to do around the UK. And there's a brand called Marvelous Maps, and they release themed maps for things to do around the UK. So they've got like a foodie map, like a history map, and they have a folklore and superstition map, which has, I think, like over 2,000 places of not just haunted places, like spiritual places or like the Loch Ness Monster, even like spooky holidays. And on the back of the map, they have a list of like the top 50 folklore and superstition locations. And it's laid out in this really fun way that if you want to, you could just do a road trip around the UK and visit every location, which unfortunately I don't have the time to do like a full road trip at the moment. But yeah, as soon as I kind of opened that map and saw the like top 50 challenge, I was like, this is amazing. I need to do this. And it's great because it's really varied. You've got kind of like visiting the Tower of London. Like I said before, you can go all the way up north and like, go to Scotland and like try and find the Loch Ness Monster. I went to Rendlesham Forest last year, and they've got like the UFO walk. So it's really varied, and I just thought it'd be like a really fun way to see more of the UK. Like I love the UK, I love exploring, and this is just a great way to see it in a different light. I picked up a magazine recently, and obviously it's not as big in the UK, but I heard like in the US they call it legend tripping, and it's all about apparently like it means to go on a pilgrimage to just visit like locations associated with urban legends and like ghosts and stuff. And I'd never heard that phrase before, but I thought that's a really cool way to put it, legend tripping.
Yeah, I like that. So, for anyone that's not familiar with the map, because I'd not actually heard of it before, but I was checking out your website when we first got in touch, and I can't remember where it is on your website. I'm just trying to find it now. But for anyone that's interested in finding the map that you spoke about, where is that?
So it's a brand called Marvelous Maps. And they
Marvelous
do all
maps.
different themed maps, but it's the folklore and superstition one that I'm referring to.
Mm. Yeah, I was checking it out a few days ago, and it is yes, so cool. It's definitely worth people checking out. For anybody that's not familiar, what is dark tourism?
So tourism is usually it's associated with when you visit places associated with death or tragedy. So it would be kind of like Chernobyl or um maybe even like the Tower of London. And that's kind of like traditionally what it's known as. But I think it's become so popular over recent years that it's kind of expanded a little bit. So although like I tend to refer to myself as like the Morbid Tourist or someone that is like a dark tourist. I don't just visit places associated with death and like graveyards. I kind of just visit places that are, just spooky in a fun way as well. And it's actually like really interesting because it spans off into all these like different areas. You have like I said before, you've got like dark tourism, but then some people just do legend tripping, some people just visit graveyards, and I think they call themselves tombstone tourists. So yeah, it's just all about kind of traveling and visiting like the darker side of travel, really. But I think it's really important as well to note that even though you're visiting places like sometimes associated with death, it doesn't mean that you're kind of like a really morbid person or like you want to go and like cause tragedy, for example. I think it's, some people think it's the worst, but I kind of see it like, for example, like Jack the Ripper in London. They've got like the Jack the Ripper Museum, and I know some people have kind of complained about that. But when I visited, I saw it as a way they have like a really great way to remember the victims, and that's the way that I see it. I don't think it's going along to just be sad. Sometimes it's a nice way to just remember the victims and that, like people that have lost their lives there.
Mm. Oh, that's a nice way. That's a nice thing to do as well. Yeah, it's not just the not just about the death
Yeah.
and the ghosts and everything. Yeah, yeah, your name as well, Morbid Tourist. There's such a like a dark name, but yeah, there's some light in what you're doing as well, which is really nice. Yeah, most people like to sip a cocktail on the beach, but then you get some people like us that are just a bit strange and like to visit these kind of places. Um,
Yeah.
what is it that inspired you to start the Morbid Tourist in the first place? Was there a particular place or story that sparked the idea?
Um, I think it's just I've always had a passion for the paranormal, and it wasn't kind of until I was in my early 30s that I started visiting like locations and kind of going to places that were supposed to be haunted and things like that. And when I kind of developed a passion for travel as well, I kind of realized I could combine the two. And when I discovered that dark tourism was a thing, it kind of like a light bulb just went off in my head. I was like, oh my God, like I can do this. I don't always have to go to a location and like do a ghost investigation. I can just visit these places and just learn about the dark history and stuff like that. And that's kind of what inspired me. Um, and I think it's just the way I've always traveled. Whenever I go to London, for example, I don't really want to do the tourist stuff. I always try and find something that's a little bit different to do to kind of see an alternative view of the city. And I think it just stems from there, really. And I also think, a lot of people always choose to do, not like everyone, but, sometimes when you go to a city, a lot of people will choose to do the tourist stuff or write about the most popular stuff to do. And in my mind, it's like, why would you go to London and go on the London Eye when you can just go to like the beautiful graveyards and things like that? It's just, see it in a different light, I guess.
Where would you say is the most unusual or unique place that you've visited so far, and what made it stand out for you?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think the most unusual place probably would have been Rendlesham Forest because that's the only place I've visited so far that's associated with like UFO sightings. And I just really like that they have a UFO trail there, so you can pick up a leaflet and follow along the trail, and it tells you what happened at each spot. And it was just like a different way to do things, I guess. So that's what kind of made it a little bit different. I wouldn't say it was the weirdest place, but like my favorite spooky place would probably have to be York because there's just so much you could do there. Like, if you're into really dark tourism, you can like do all the ghost tours or visit places associated with like Dick Turpin, for example, or you could do like the fun spooky stuff. There's loads of like Harry Potter themed spots there as well. So I think that's a really good one as well.
So, out of all the places you visited, would you say York is where you'd recommend the most?
So far.
Mm-hmm.
I think Edinburgh is a good one as well, but I think York is like I've explored York like quite a few times now. I'm just always finding new spooky things to do there.
Oh, cool. I've been to most places around the UK, but York and Edinburgh are two places that I've not actually got around
Oh, you
to
would love
visiting.
it.
Yeah, I'm sure I would. They look amazing.
hmm
Yeah, I'm just only a matter of time before we go. So, whereabouts in York would you recommend?
Um, I would recommend. I would definitely recommend doing one of the ghost tours. It's hard to choose because there's so many ghost tours to do there, but I really like the ghost bus tour because that's a little bit different. And it's like quite fun as well. It's kind of like a mix of a ghost tour and the York dungeons, and it kind of gives you an overview. Where you can just like see all the spooky things to do in York without like leaving your seat and stuff. And you can also, I think it's called the Blue Boar. I'll have to double check it for you. But there's a pub there where you can go in, and in the basement they have what is supposed to be Dick Turpin's coffin. And you can go and have a drink and like take a shot with like his coffin,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is just really like kitschy and cool.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it sounds so much fun. Whereabouts is it you're actually based?
So I'm based in Milton Keynes.
Okay, we're not too far from each other. So yeah, I'm originally from Cambridge, but now just living on like the border of Suffolk. I'm
Oh
like
wow.
I think probably 45 minutes to an hour away from Rendlesham Forest.
Oh cool. Have you been?
Um, I went years ago, but I wasn't there for very long. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna go back. Because yeah, it was quite a good place to visit. Then do they have quite? I can't really remember it. I remember seeing the statue of the UFO, in the forest, but that's about it. But yeah, so is there quite a lot of touristy stuff around the UFO around the thing that happened there?
Um, Actually, I kind of feel like there could have been more. So you have the trail, and it is fun to do the trail and visit all the like the supposed spots. And I think it's two or three information boards. Um, but there's only so much you can do, without having actual photos of the UFO. Like there's only so much you can see. It's definitely interesting because you read like the pamphlet as you go along, and it tells you to stop in this spot and kind of put yourself in the shoes of the I think it's RAF officers who spotted a UFO, and it's kind of like 3 a.m. in the morning. It's like imagine you were kind of just in this forest with barely anyone else around you, just looked up and saw this light, and it's like a little bit immersive like that.
Out of everything, like true crime, folklore, hauntings, UFOs, what's your favorite thing to research or place to visit?
Oh, one of my favorite things to research is the John Bonet case in America. Obviously, I can't go and visit like their house and stuff, but that just absolutely fascinates me. I'll be very annoyed if we don't get answers to what actually happened to her in my lifetime. Like that just like grips my mind constantly. In terms of places to visit, I haven't been yet, but I'm like so desperate to go and visit like Loch Ness and try and learn more about that because I think the Loch Ness Information Research Centre it recently had an upgrade. I think before you could just like go and like learn a bit about Loch Ness Monster, but now they have like a whole themed thing where you can like learn loads and loads. You can go like out on the lake with like boats and stuff. So I think that'd be really fascinating. I think that'd just be really fun to cover as well, like just doing a little video like, oh, I'm just hunting for Loch Ness.
It's such a good way to just get out and about as well, isn't it? Like, and just visit places that you'd never go before.
Hmm.
Yeah, we had like when going out with my partner and stuff, and we visited so many cool places that we'd have just never been to, and just so many nice little, even just pubs or restaurants or cafes, all sorts that you'd just you'd have just kind of turned a blind eye to if it wasn't for the this kind of dark tourism,
And
I
even if you
guess.
don't see anything, it's still so much fun to kind of do the
Mm.
research and just go on that little kind of micro adventure. It's just something different to do. Yeah.
Has there been a place or story that was maybe too eerie or unsettling even for the morbid tourist?
Um, I don't think as of yet. I did kind of when I went to Clop Hill Church in Bedfordshire, because that's more or less just up the road from me. I found that like a little bit unsettling, and that was kind of a weird one because I grew up hearing rumors about that church, and when I was like a teenager, all my friends would go like try and go there for Halloween, because it has like loads of association with like dark history and stuff, and I was always too scared to go. And I finally went, I think it was last year, and I went on like a really summer's day. There was like no reason for it to be weird, but I just kind of like walked through and I definitely felt, I don't know, just a weird atmosphere. So it wasn't necessarily dark, but it was just kind of weird how just when you know a history of a place, you just kind of get that vibe.
So, on that note, have you had any of your own kind of paranormal encounters or experiences throughout your life?
Um, I haven't had any like massive ones that you could like 100%, put down to a paranormal experience. But like I've had a few things. So actually kind of going back to the previous question, so I went to this was before I launched the Morbid Tourist, but I went to Zach Baggins' Haunted Museum in America. I think it's like 6 years ago now. And they had one of the rooms that I went in, they had the Dr. Death van, and I kind of didn't know much about the story behind that before I went in. And like before we went in, they said to us like, if you find this too much, you don't have to go into the room or anything like that. So I kind of like wasn't expecting much because I didn't know much of the story, and I went in and it was just like this huge rusty van just taking up the entire room, and the tour guide was telling us about the story and how he basically I guess it depends on what way you look at it, but he killed people in that very van, and you could just see like how rusty and run down it was, and they had this really sad flute music playing, and I don't kind of like usually get affected by this type of thing, but I just like became really overcome with emotion, and it just it is a sad subject, but I'd never kind of reacted in that way. And for the rest of the tour, I just kept feeling like really sad. I've been so excited to visit the museum because it's like so has like so many artifacts that are meant to be haunted and things like that. And I thought it'd be like a really fun thing to do. But from that moment onwards, it just felt like my interest in the paranormal was just like really sad for some reason. And when I went back to my hotel and told my friend about it, I just started crying. And looking back, like I don't know if it was anything paranormal. Like it could have been just because it's a really sad story and they were just like playing sad music. But it was just kind of one of those things. It's the only time that's made me think like, oh, maybe this is like a little bit too sad. Like, should I write about this? And it just kind of really sucked the fun. Like, not that kind of. It's like dark tourism is always fun, like read about murders and stuff. But it just like sucked the passion out of me like a little bit, and I found that quite sad. Um, and in terms of kind of like experiences. I think the only kind of proper experience I had would be when my mum died. This was like 11 years ago now. I don't know how, but somehow, like the day she died, that night, I somehow managed to fall asleep, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and I smelled this perfume. I may have been like half asleep, but like when you smell something so strong, you can literally taste it at the back of your throat. It was right in front of me and so, so strong. And I kind of didn't think anything of it. I just managed to fall back asleep. And then the next morning, I went into her room and smelled some of like the perfumes that she used to wear, and it was one of her perfumes. And I just found that really, really comforting. And I remember kind of speaking to people about it later on, saying, "Oh, you know." whether it's paranormal or not, it's just like a really comforting thing for me. And to me, it kind of felt like it was her way of saying goodbye. But other people have like since said to me, maybe it's just her way of saying to you she's still around. And yeah, it's just one of those things. I think it's like a really interesting way to look at the paranormal, whether you believe in it or not. It brings comfort to some people, and isn't that the important thing? Like, as
Mm.
long as they're comforted, what does it matter? Like, what you think sometimes.
Firstly, I'm really sorry to hear about your mum. But yeah, what a heartwarming story,
I
and
thank you.
I'm I'm so happy for you that you found comfort in what happened. And like you say, it doesn't matter if it was a real experience, if it was a supernatural experience,
Hmm.
or if it was just something that was in your brain. It's like that you probably needed that at that moment in time, right?
Hmm.
Your ghost story. Your ghost story.
Just want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you for your incredible support. Your Ghost Stories is just over a year old, and we're currently getting around 10,000 organic listeners per month, which is mind blowing. As most of you guys will know, Your Ghost Stories is a fully independent podcast, and the running and upkeep of the show are entirely funded by myself. To help me continue bringing you these fascinating weekly interviews and stories, Your Ghost Stories is now accepting donations via PayPal. Each month, 50% of all donations will go to a different and selected charity, chosen by you through a poll on our Instagram page on the first of each month. The remaining 50% will be used directly to help keep the podcast up and running and expand our reach through marketing. Your contributions not only help us to grow and continue to thrive, but more importantly, will make a difference in the world. You'll find a link to donate any amount of your choice in the description of this episode or via the website yourghoststoriespodcast.com. If you're not in a position to donate, I totally understand. Times are difficult for a lot of people right now, but if you still want to help support the show for free, you can do this by following the podcast on Spotify or Apple or wherever you listen to this podcast, or even better, by leaving us a kind review to help others just like you find the show. Thank you so much for your generosity and support.
Your ghost story. Your ghost story.
Where do your beliefs lie when it comes to spirits or ghosts? What do you think they are?
Oh, I don't know what I think they are, but I'm 100% a believer in ghosts, and I think 80% of me would love to like see a proper ghost, and then the other 20%, I think I'd just be way too scared. I think I don't know why, I've just kind of always had this belief, but I think ghosts are I think they just stick around usually if they've got unfinished business. That's kind of just always been my initial thought, and I have read like accounts of people that have kind of like had messages from ghosts and seen like a particular spirit a lot and found things out, and then that spirit's kind of like stopped visiting. Of course that doesn't explain everything, because that there's like places in York where people see like Roman soldiers time and time again. But yeah, I think maybe that's a way to look at it, because I think I'd like to believe that if ghosts are still around and they have unfinished business, I like the idea of that they can eventually move on and be at peace.
I'd like to ask everyone this question as well. So, do you believe in good and evil, or negative and positive energy?
Hmm.
And you touched on that earlier, where you kind of felt the energy in that place in America. Um, so yeah, is it something Do you believe in dark and good forces?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely believe that some places you can just feel the energy when you visit places, and I'm pretty sure that like I'd have to read into it, but I'm pretty sure there have been like some scientific experiments to say that there is such thing as an energy that sticks around afterwards. I might be talking complete. I don't know if I've made this up or not, but I feel like you've got one side of the paranormal, and it's like, oh, people say that it's either spirits and ghosts and stuff, but then you have like this other side where a site can be associated with so much death and tragedy, and people that don't even believe in the paranormal can just walk on that site and just have that feeling of sadness and darkness. And I think, yeah, no matter what your beliefs are, a lot of people pick up on that. So I absolutely do believe in kind of like good and evil. I think I believe that there's demons out there. I don't want to believe that, but I have had some horror stories that like make me believe otherwise.
Yeah, I think from experience, sometimes the demons are definitely among us.
hmm
um, what's your favorite ghost story that you've come across since starting the Morbid Tourist?
I love the plague house story in York. So I don't know if you've heard of this one, but there's I think it's number 5 College Street. It's like a tiny little house which is overlooked by York Minster, and the story goes that when the Black Plague was like taking over York and stuff, there was a family that contracted the Black Plague, and so all the townspeople made the family stay inside the house, and they boarded up all the windows and the doors, so the family couldn't get out. And I think so. All the family died in the house, but it turns out that the little girl, like the youngest girl, she didn't have the plague, and she survived. But even after the rest of the family died, the townspeople refused to let the family out, and you could like there's reports saying that the little girl was seen staring out the window just crying and begging to be let out, and over the years people have seen like the little girl's ghost just staring out the window. I found that fascinating. I actually saw that the house was up for rent recently, but this was like I saw it on Rightmove, but it had already been sold to someone, and I was absolutely gutted because if I'd seen that for rent at the time, I would be straight in York, living in that house, like
Really?
investigating constantly. Yeah.
Oh wow! Have you heard of the Cage in St. Osoph?
Yes, yes, I was actually listening to that episode a couple of days ago, and oh my God, I kind of just knew the very like basics of it. I had no idea that the village that the cage is based in had such a spooky history as well.
Mm.
Like that, that episode you did was absolutely amazing and so eye-opening. I really enjoyed that one.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I thought she was an amazing guest, and I had no idea about the history either. So it was, yeah, so cool. And I hadn't heard that story about the one in York either. That sounds absolutely tragic. I honestly,
hmm
I don't think I've heard any stories from York. I haven't like looked into any. Like we were saying at the beginning, there's
hmm
so many stories all over the UK. Like at the minute, I'm just kind of exhausting everything around my
Yeah.
area. So just up the road from me, I think it's about 30 minutes. There's like a place called Bury St Edmunds, and I'm sure
Hmm.
you're familiar. This,
No, I'm not actually. Like I've heard the
okay,
place, but I don't know any of the dark history or
mm,
anything.
yeah. There's so many places there and so many stories there. I've like shared a few on TikTok recently. Yeah, I spent yeah, a month or so just looking at stories there. Um, but yeah, so yeah, I'm gonna have to look at booking a trip to York. Is there any specific time of year you'd recommend going? Is it like super spooky in the over the winter? I can imagine.
Yeah, it's very spooky kind of over like autumn and winter, but it does get really busy as well. So it depends what you want to do because they've got the York Ghost Merchants. I don't know if you've seen that on TikTok, but it's like a shop that you can buy these little, I think it's clay ghosts, and it went viral on TikTok years and years ago. And you can, if you go kind of in like a peak time or at Halloween, you can line up for like up to 4 hours. But they've opened like a smaller shop now as well. So I definitely recommend going kind of maybe like early October, just to avoid the crowds a little bit.
Oh, nice. Well, it's my birthday around October, so I might have
Oh,
to
there you go.
book a little trip for my birthday. Um, what's next for you, Louise? What do you have coming up over the next few months?
So I'm definitely trying to tick off more spots from my spooky top 50. So coming up, I'm gonna do Stonehenge in the next couple of weeks because that's not too far away from me. I want to do what's the other place I really want to tick off from that? Oh, Pluckley Village is a big one. That absolutely fascinates me because Pluckley Village is once in the Guinness Book of Records as the most haunted village in the UK, and I find that fascinating. Like how could they, like, obviously I believe in ghosts, but how could they prove that that's the most haunted village? So that's a really big one that I definitely want to do. And I think maybe not this year, but I really want to kind of go abroad for Halloween. I'd love to go visit. I've been there before, but I'd love to visit Bran's castle, which is Dracula's castle in Romania for Halloween, because they do a Halloween party on Halloween night. I think that'd just be like such a fun bucket list thing to do, and maybe like closer to home. I've been to Nottingham loads of times. Nottingham is another, like, you'd be surprised, Nottingham is another city which is really spooky, like loads of like quirky things to do there. And they've got their ghost walk. And I've done all the spooky stuff apart from, for some reason, every time I visit Nottingham, I end up planning it during the week. And there, I think the ghost walk is only on a Friday night. So I definitely need to go to Nottingham and finally tick off the ghost walk as well.
I've been to Nottingham quite a few times, but I had no idea that it's got such a rich history, especially when it comes to like ghosts and stuff. What's your favourite story out of Nottingham?
I really like the, oh, let me just double check the name. Is it the old trip to Jerusalem? Yeah, that's like one of the oldest pubs in Nottingham, and I think that has maybe three or four ghosts, but you go inside and it's like this little higgledy-piggledy place. You go in and they've got um like a little kind of room called the Snug, I think it's called, and that's like one of the most haunted rooms in the pub. And then you go upstairs and you go kind of, they've got this little bridge. You go over a little bridge and it has like all this old artifacts in another room. And they have in one of the bars upstairs, they have this old pirate ship in like a glass case. And I have to remember the story exactly, but I think what had happened is a sailor or something, he was in debt at the pub, and I think he didn't have the money to pay for like everything he'd drunk like over the years. So he gave the pub owners like this old ship, and I think over the next few years, every time someone like opened a glass case and tried to clean the ship, um, like would be in an accident or like someone would die or like get in a car crash or something. And it's just got to the point now where everyone refuses to clean it. So they've put it in this like locked gold glass case. And if you look at it, it's just covered in dust because they refuse to let anyone open it and clean it because they're just too scared now. And that's just like on this display and stuff. So that's like a really funny, like not funny, but it's like a really
Hmm.
fascinating story.
There are so many stories with like similarities like that I've come into just around this area alone. So there's it's called the Nutshell in Bury, St Edmunds, what I was just talking about, and they have, it's absolutely disgusting. But they have a mummified cat just dangling above the bar. Have you heard about that?
No, I haven't, but I know a few places have mummified cats. That's
Hmm.
another thing that I feel like is like really popular. Loads of stories have mummified cats. There's Delapre Abbey near me. I think they found a mummified cat in their floorboards once. I'm gonna have to read into it. I'm sure it
And
means something.
the story always goes as well, like they find it and then someone removes it and then weird stuff starts to happen or fires
Yeah.
start to happen. It's crazy how many of those stories are there are. Yeah, maybe, looking into the history of where these mummified cats come from, then
That's always
they,
cats, never
yeah,
dogs. Always
yeah.
cats.
Maybe it's like some kind of witch curse or something,
hmm
who knows. You'll know a lot more than I would. you, um so yeah, you've been awesome and really fascinating guest, and I really encourage everyone listening to this to go and follow the Morbid Tourist. I know just from this call alone, I've got so much inspiration for cool places to go and visit. So yeah, I can't wait to um, keep checking out your content on socials and stuff, and seeing where you're off to. So where can everyone come and find your socials and everything online?
Oh, thank you so much. So, if you just go to my website, which is www.themorbidtourist.com, and that has a link to all my socials. And also, if like you are interested in any recommendations for spooky things to do around the UK, I have a Facebook group called Spooky Britain. And I share my recommendations on there, and people kind of share their own experiences or ask for ideas of like things to do near them. So if you're interested in kind of more ideas, that's also a good place you can find out more.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to come and talk about everything weird and wonderful. And yeah, I wish you all the best with everything. And yeah, definitely stay in touch and come on anytime you like and come and talk about some of the recent spooky places that you've visited.
Oh, thank you so much. This was so much fun.
All right. See ya. Nice to meet you.
I'll speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye. Bye.